Hello, welcome back to my Wednesday weaving slot. I have a friend who has recently undergone surgery on her hands. It set me to thinking that as people who use our hands all the time, and let's face it, most people use their hands all the time one way or another, but our craft is particularly tactile, and we really need to take care of these wonderful instruments that God has given us. I don't, and you can see that as I'm growing older, that dreaded lurgy is beginning to show its face, and my hands certainly are not as strong or as supple as they used to be. Quite a few years ago, I attended a quilt festival, and one of the guest speakers, interestingly enough, was a physiotherapist, and she gave us a talk on looking after your bodies when you are working at your sewing machine. Well, I'm not a seamstress, so my sewing machine is basically my loom. And it was enormously beneficial, actually, to listen to what she had to say. As far as taking care of our hands is concerned, it really is important that we try and preserve the movement and the suppleness in them. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is just to take a little rubber ball like this. I can't remember where I got this, but it's particularly good for the purpose. And just while you're sitting watching TV, just squeeze the ball a few times. That's all you need to do. And what it does is it just kind of stops these muscles in the inside of your hand from becoming lazy or becoming soft. It just kind of keeps everything moving. The other thing that I found particularly interesting and very difficult to do, surprisingly enough, was to touch the fingertips of all your fingers onto your thumb. And this is a great exercise as well, especially if you've got those fingers that are kind of clicking and they're hurting a little bit when you try and bend them. It just kind of keeps everything moving. So those are two great exercises for just kind of keeping your hands a little bit supple, and I can't say pain-free. Your hands won't be pain-free doing these exercises, but they'll certainly be a bit stronger and they'll have a little bit more movement. Now, one of the things that a lot of people complain about, especially solo weavers like me, who don't have an accommodating husband or a friend who will actually hold on to the warp while you're winding on your warp, and you use the Yank and Crank method. So the Yank and Crank method, as you all know, consists of winding a certain section of the warp onto the roller and then going to the front of the loom and with your hands giving it a really good tug. And I've always said when you're doing the Yank and Crank method to use this part of your hand, because this is the strong part of your hand. The thumb side of your hand is actually surprisingly fragile. So when you're doing the Yank and Crank, use this part of your hand to really pull down on the warp and to use it as leverage. But I have another trick up my sleeve as well, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm actually cheating a little bit here because, as you can see, this loom is already warped. But even with the warp on the loom, I can show you the principles of what I'm talking about here. Now, what you need is you need a short stick, a dowel stick or something like this. This is my very favorite little baby hammer. But I know that it's strong and I know that it can do the job because I use it all the time. It needs to be a round stick. So something like a dowel stick. This dowel is too long. It needs to be probably not more than about 30 centimeters or 12 inches long. That would probably be a maximum length. And it, as I said, needs to be a round stick. Don't be tempted to try this using one of your shuttles because you will break your shuttle. And all you do is you grab a small section of the warp and you twist it around the handle of your hammer or your round stick, whatever you happen to be using, and you use this to give you leverage. And with that in place, I can now give my warp a really, really good pull, and it's going to tension my warp beautifully. So please, friends, when you are weaving and you're doing things like putting up your warp and doing the yank and crank, take care of your hands. And even if you're not weaving, if you find that your hands are feeling a little bit stiff, or they've just taken a bit of a beating through the day, just take care of them. Squeeze that little rubber ball, touch your fingertips to your thumbs. They all help. It doesn't need to be something that you do for an hour a day. It can literally be 5 minutes at a time, not even 5 minutes. Just make it a habit to keep those fingers moving. Our hands are our lives. I'll see you again next week with more weaving tips and tricks to help make you a more confident weaver. This is Glynis from Weave at Brooklands. Thank you so much for watching.